Hi guys, today's video is going to be about anchor text and why too much optimization can kill your traffic. Now, when it comes to manual link building, anchor text is obviously going to be something which will come up, and it can be quite tempting to sneak in as many exact match anchors as you can when you're building links. Now, little do most people know, over-optimizing is definitely something you want to avoid. Over-optimizing your anchor text can actually put your site at risk of penalty and effectively kill your rankings and traffic growth. So before you put your SEO efforts back to square one, just keep watching this video and I'll let you know my philosophy on this issue. So what is anchor text all about? Anchor text essentially is if you don't know, the clickable part of the link, and it can be used by search engines to determine what the link is about. So in theory, you'd think that we should just create all of our anchor text with our keywords in mind. Now, that is true to an extent. However, it's not a part that you want to overdo. The key to preventing any backlash from search engines and to make it look as natural as possible is to keep your anchor text as diverse as possible. So generally for links that are earned naturally without outreach, you wouldn't really have this issue. Everyone would be linking in a way which makes sense and which comes naturally to them. However, if you're doing outreach and you're asking for links, if you're actively doing guest post campaigns or whatever it is you're doing, and you have a certain degree of control over the link, then you need to get a good handle on this and know how to make it seem natural. Now, when it comes to exact match domains, an EMD is where the domain is also the primary keyword the business is trying to rank for. For example, linkbuildingexpert.com or londonroofers.com or something like this. In this scenario, you would want to avoid making the majority of the anchors the primary keyword, even though it is the brand name, because while it is also the brand name, the search engines could still determine it to be over-optimization. So I would aim to keep anchors with the brand name to under 10% and try to diversify the rest of the anchors as much as possible, whether that's using a naked URL, by anchoring it with more info, learn more about X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is you're going to do, especially if you're just starting out. Now, if like the majority of brands, your domain is just a brand, it's not your primary keyword, you'll kind of come under this banner of branded domain. For example, like, the way Apple, Dyson, Facebook, etc., they've used a brand name as their domain. Now, you have a bit more leeway when it comes to using your primary keyword as an anchor, as long as you don't overdo it. So, in other words, don't use the same anchor over and over again. Where it wouldn't make a difference is further down the line when you have hundreds of thousands, millions of links. That's where you have more leeway, you can get away with more, but that's because it's getting diluted by the sheer volume of the total number of natural links that you have as well. Most brands, however, until they're really making some serious bank, much further down the process, you unfortunately don't have this luxury. The key thing though is don't overthink your anchors as well. Don't sit there with a calculator trying to figure out if you have your ratios correct. There's no hard and fast rule of 20% of this anchor, 10% of this, 10% of that. Even any guidelines that I've given are merely that. It's a guideline, it's a number that you should shoot for, but it's not something you have to hit exactly, so it's not an exact science, that's what I'm trying to say. But here's how you estimate your recommended anchor text ratio. So you can use something like Ahrefs and then analyze the anchor text of your top competitors. So this can give you a kind of estimated ratio that you could probably shoot for, which seems to be favoured by Google for your particular industry. So what you do is get the top 5 competitors for your primary keyword and comparing only pages of the same type. So for instance, if it's category page or a home page, put those URLs into Ahrefs and then note down the anchor text ratios for each page. You'll then want to group them according to 5 elements. So if it has brand terms, exact match, LSIs, and miscellaneous. So from that, it should give you a trend. It'll give you the kind of anchor text ratio that you want to shoot for. But remember, this is just a partial glimpse of the story. What it What really matters is the quality and the relevance of the links that you're going to be building. So if you think you've got too many exact match or brand match anchors, you can either delete the lower quality links or ask for them to be deleted. That's more important if the links are very spammy, if they're not high quality sites. You can also build other links with varying anchors, making sure that it's a mix of every other type of anchor. It will dilute the category that you've overdone. But then again, you don't want to over egg this bit either, and you don't want to make your anchors completely irrelevant as well. Also want to make sure your on-page SEO isn't over optimized. So if you've got your keywords in the H1 tags and images dotted throughout the page, just make sure you've not over egged it. And along with that, if your keyword is just mentioned too much within the content of your page, you want to reduce it down to a more sensible level. Now, in the scenario where you have under-optimized anchors, you want to build a decent amount of links where you have plenty of keywords and LSI-based keywords. Now, maybe you're not using your exact primary keyword, but synonyms of them and variations of them will be enough. Again, you still want to emphasize the quality and the relevance of your links. So really, to summarize, I just want to relate it to these basic principles. Does it make sense? So in other words, do the anchors actually make sense within the content within the content that it's placed in, and does it look natural? It kind of pains me to see people force links into an article and end up with an article that just says, if you're looking for a recommended roofers in London or something, in the middle of a sentence where it just doesn't make any sense. That isn't natural link building. You also want to bear in mind searcher intent, so see what kind of pages are ranking for that keyword and build out the same type of page. So if category pages are ranking using that anchor, or if it's in a homepage or a blog post, it all depends on the keyword and the intent behind it. So look, anchor text diversity is not something to obsess and digress over. You want to get relevant quality links and drive relevant quality traffic. When you do that, if you focus on that, the natural flow and the order of it may in fact completely prevent those kind of issues being there anyway, if you just do things the natural way. So that's it for today's video, and I hope that helped.